The Dateable podcast is an insider's look into modern dating that the Huffington Post calls one of the top 10 podcasts about love and sex. On each episode, we'll talk to real daters about everything from sex parties to sex droughts, date fails to diaper fetishes, and first moves to first loves. I'm your host, Yue Xu, former dating coach turned dating sociologist. You'll also hear from my co-host and producer, Julie Krafchick, as we explore this crazy dateable world. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Dateable, a show all about modern dating. We're about to wrap up 2020. See ya later.
But happy holidays, everyone. We hope that you have a great holiday season, whether you're with family and friends or you're doing things virtually this year. And we, of course, have some great couple episodes still in store.
We have 2 more episodes left for this season and for this year. That's crazy to think about, but also very exciting. We're about to reset our lives with the new year. This episode is no less more stellar than any of the other ones. It is, in fact, one of our favorites, as we always say. But of course, we say that about every episode. But this one is especially interesting for us because we're getting a male perspective from a man who's been podcasting about dating for a very long time. His name is Jared Freid.
Yes, and he's a comedian, and he also has a couple of podcasts of his own, You Up, with Jordana Abraham, who we've also had on the podcast, and he also has the J Train podcast. So I don't know, this episode I think is fascinating. Like, I feel like I've just had a few revelations like this entire weekend because I was editing his episode, and the real theme in this episode is why can't we just be honest? You know, a lot of it is that we're afraid to say what we're really feeling because there could be consequences of that. And I was thinking about it too, with just all relationships, not just in a dating and relationship or romantic relationships context, even family. For instance, I've been seeing a lot in our Facebook group about people that are I don't want to go home for the holidays. I'm going to be the only single person. People are going to ask why I'm still single. There's a rec in our Facebook group for Home for the Holidays. It was for Christmas. It's a Netflix show. Yeah. So I started it, and it's the very, cliche, the 30-year-old sitting at the end of the table with the 2 babies. And I was thinking about it because I actually just had a video call with my cousin who really wanted to catch up. I haven't talked to her in 3 years. She just had a baby. Well, she had a baby 2 years ago and is about to have another baby. And literally the entire call was me just looking at her baby. And it wasn't a catch up in any way. And, I'm happy for her. I was excited to see her baby. I think what I was thinking, though, is I'm here to celebrate your life choices and wins. She didn't, I guess, just to give more context, ask 0 questions about my life at all. So I'm why can't, to feel we have a better relationship, it would be good to have that reciprocal feeling of interest and wanting to hear about my wins and life accomplishments. And I was thinking about it, why couldn't I say that to her? And I'm I would never say that to her. The fact of saying that, or to your parents, and the example of sitting you with, the babies because you're 30 and single. Why can't you say I want to feel respected as an adult and sit with the people my own age, or I also want to find love. And it hurts me every time we focus the entire attention to that. I'd rather focus on enjoying the time we have together. Why are those things so difficult for us to say?
I think honesty is just really hard in general for us. We take things personally, and then we believe other people will take things quite personally. I do love it when people call me out and tell me honestly, this conversation is not going anywhere, or I'm not getting out of this conversation what I was hoping to get out of it. But very rarely do we have those conversations. And my boyfriend and I had this exact same talk the other day. He's why can't we just say how we feel in the moment? We kind of brew, and then we let it build up resentment, and then suddenly it comes out and it becomes an insult or it becomes offensive. Right. Yeah, it's a very strange thing that we feel we got to what in Chinese culture we call it save face in the moment. But for what? For the benefit of what? You're not getting anything out of it, and they're not getting anything out of it.
No, I'm just going to now avoid video calls with my cousin.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
Like, how is that really helping strengthen the relationship at all? Maybe like she didn't know what to ask me. Like maybe if I said to her like, hey, I was hoping to like have a conversation where I felt like we were more sharing updates in both of our lives, maybe she would reframe how she did it. But yeah, it's fascinating because the other day too, I actually was doing a video date with someone and we like kind of agreed on the video date. Like I wouldn't say it was sparks. It was, I think it's hard to have sparks on a video date, but it was enough that I was willing to keep going with the conversation. Right. And he also said the same because I was like, hey, I'm in Boston. Like totally get if you don't want to keep talking. Like we can either talk when I get back or, you know, whatever. And he was like, no, I'm totally down to keep talking. Messaged me the next day, was asking a few questions. And then I kind of like said like, oh, like, do you want to bring this to text as we're talking through the app? And he was like, I actually decided like this isn't the right fit. And I was like, okay, you know, just being the curious person I am. And, you know, I think this does help like dating. I was like, can I ask what changed for you? And he basically said, I don't think that we have enough similar interests. Because he was like super into like horror and sci-fi and like honestly things that I'm not into. And I actually noticed he updated his dating profile to like include that stuff. There was nothing wrong with being honest. Like, it's actually better than like continuing to have this, you know, there was a momentary like, oh, okay, like this is kind of weird. But then also I'm like, long term, if you really think those things are so important to you and a partner and I don't have them, then maybe it's okay. Like, it's just not a right fit.
It saves a lot more time and effort when people are more honest.
I don't even know his name anymore. It's like you've moved on to other people. And I'm not saying that like it's good to be disposable like that, but like at the same time, we talk with Jared about this at length, but like all the confusion happens with dating is when people aren't honest and they're not stating what's really going on for them. And people are kind of holding on to a story just because they want to hold on to that story.
Yeah. Oh, man, this is just one of those struggles that we all face. I don't know anybody who's like, oh, I'm really good with honesty and I'll say whatever it is on my mind in the moment, because we have all these filters and a lot of these filters are self-imposed. It's not like the other person may actually take offense to what you're saying. It's that you yourself, you're like, oh, I probably wouldn't want to hear it that way. It's sort of an interesting dynamic because it shows how you want to interact with other people. Like I've had these circumstances with my boyfriend where he's like, oh, in the moment, I just want to scream at you and tell you I was right. And I'm like, why didn't you? To me, I would love it if someone would just scream and say, Yue, I'm right here. Just listen to me. But then, you know, he kind of like tries to hide it. And then later tells me, I'm like, no, it doesn't work like that with me. So I think just practicing more honesty, we've talked about this too before in previous episodes, with yourself first. What are those things that you would say to yourself in the moment that maybe you don't want to hear, but at least you're being honest with yourself? It's something it's a skill and we should all learn it.
And I think it's all how you say it. I think you and I actually have come a long way on this. Like at the beginning, I feel like we would not say things to each other because we didn't want to, you know, like rock the boat or hurt each other's feelings. And it's as long as you say it in a way that's coming from a place of love and not being like, you suck because of this or like whatever. Like, I think if I was like got off the phone with my cousin and sent her a nasty text message, like that wouldn't go over right. But if I was like, hey, I was really looking forward to catching up with you. Like I would have loved to like been able to like do this when you weren't so preoccupied or something like that. Like that's a lot different tone for sure.
Yeah. And just people with kids. It's not all about your kids, damn it.
I know. It's one of, like, I have some friends that manage this so well. My brother is about to have a baby and he's like, please tell me if I become one of those parents. Like, I don't want to be that person. And, you know, I think this is actually a good point though, is like to the people that we were mentioning that are saying like, oh, I can't believe I have to go home and I'm going to be the only person that's not coupled up or the only person that's not married or the only person that doesn't have kids or what second kid, whatever it is. Like there's a zillion, it keeps going. I think what I would challenge people to do in that situation is like, think about what is good in your life right now.
Yeah.
Because I think one person mentioned like, I'm going to have to go, it's hardest when I go home and I'm alone after being with all the people. Maybe you can read a book you've been dying to do or make a charcuterie plate or, you know, like binge whatever TV show you've been dying to do. Newsflash is like, when you have kids, you can't just do that at the drop of the dime. So it's like, instead of being upset about where you are today, maybe it's like appreciate where you are. It's because you might not be there forever.
I think a lot of times family members feel bad for you when you're single because they think you feel bad for yourself. So they're trying to show sympathy, but at the same time, they may not know that you're enjoying your single life or you're having the time of your life. They don't know that. They just, I think for a lot of the older generation, they just think single people are miserable when they have no idea what the single life is.
Yeah.
So it is up to you to shed light on how awesome your life is.
Totally. Because I was thinking about that today. I was like my world of revelations, because I also visited my grandmother, who is, to be honest, not doing well. Like, she has Alzheimer's, really just does not remember much. And there was a period of my life, like I was always very close with my grandmother, but she'd always ask me, like, are you dating someone? And I'm like the one single person of all my cousins on that side. So it's always been this like stickling point that I'm like, oh, like I love seeing her, but I don't want to like have this conversation. And I'm like, I need to step back and be like, she just doesn't know a world where someone could actually just be a single woman and like take care of themselves.
They don't know.
And honestly, like, it's kind of sad now because she doesn't ask me this stuff anymore, because she just honestly probably just doesn't even know what's going on in my life because of just her condition. I think it's hard. It's like, but meeting people like kind of with empathy, that they're just not in the same worldview that you're in.
Or sometimes with the older generation, you just tell them what they want to hear. Like my grandpa, for example, who passed away this year at the age of 90, he passed away thinking that I was married with 2 kids.
I thought about that. I totally thought about that.
And it made him super happy. I mean, like last time my dad was back in China, he was like, how's my granddaughter and her husband and kids? And my dad's like, they're doing great. And then my grandpa, who's seen maybe too many photos of Mojo, would always think I have this rambunctious son who's very pale. He'll always be like, how's her pale son doing?
Oh my God.
It's fantastic. You know that I'm not going to argue with him. He's 90 years old. And like, it's awesome. Grandpa, my family's great. My son is doing awesome. Like you can rest easy. And he passed away thinking that. That's fantastic.
I totally joked to my parents saying that. They were like, don't do that. And I'm like, I could just like tell her and she'll be super happy, you know?
Yeah.
And just, now I'm going to tell them that you did that.
Well, I mean, I don't know if anybody told him that. He just thought it up in his mind and it just stuck with him.
You just omitted certain details.
I didn't
clarify.
Exactly. I did not disagree with his statements.
Right. That's like a friend of mine he's outwardly gay, but his grandparents don't know. And like he would always bring women to like weddings, like female friends, and they'd be like, oh, he's such a player. And they just were like, we're just going to not say that, you know, like not that they're obviously, it was just a generational thing. And again, like not like maybe honesty though, like maybe there isn't something wrong with saying like, hey, I actually really love my life. Like I'm fully supporting myself. I'm happy with who I am and where I'm going. Like maybe they just don't know.
Yeah, I know. Either you tell them full honesty or you just let them believe whatever they want to believe. Whatever you think it's easiest for you in dealing with your family.
Well, that's the problem that brings it back to dating, is like when you think it's easier when you ghost, for instance. You know, like that's where it all comes full circle. But we'll get into it in this conversation. It's a good one. Definitely listen through the whole thing on it. I took a lot away.
What we love about all of these conversations that we have is that you learn something new about yourself. So I really love the last sounding board event we just did, a sounding board event with Logan Ury that we just did on the science of dating, where we had people take our quiz, which is all about dating tendencies, where you would either come out to be a maximizer, a romanticizer, or a hesitator. And it seemed like 90% of our sounding board members were maximizers, which is not a surprise, where you try to optimize the situation. You do a lot of research on your potential dates, and you become really indecisive at times because you're like, maybe there's something better out there. But Louise posted a very interesting question in our Facebook group. She said, as a maximizer, how do you reconcile this feeling of having these sort of unrelenting standards and knowing that they're unreasonable at times, and also not wanting to settle? And so how do you how do you kind of handle these two conflicting thoughts? And I feel like so many people are going through this is on one hand, you want to be with the best person for you, but on the other hand, you also know that you have these expectations that you may not communicate to your potential suitors that makes it very impossible to date you. So I would say to that is we need to redefine what settling is. I think settling is about finding the person that you feel like is the right person for you and creating a life with them, knowing that there are going to be more problems and challenges down the line, that your life is not going to be perfect. Settling is not about giving up your standards and your values and saying, fuck it, throw them out the window and being like, next, whoever's next, I'll take you. That is the old school way of thinking about settling. So maximizers can absolutely settle as long as you know that in the future, there's still going to be more problems that you're going to have to work through. You're not going to be with someone perfect.
I feel like this was the week of getting to know you quizzes between the sounding board event and then also our last week episode about relationship schemas, which it kind of leads to the question of the day this week. But another quick announcement, we are going to actually do some, like if you are looking for something to do over the holidays, we are going to keep our virtual happy hours running in the sounding board. So we'll have one on Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve as they fall over Thursdays. Yep. And one of our members also offered to kind of do this holiday party where people are going to wear their favorite holiday onesie or ugly Christmas sweater. So again, just another reason to join the sounding board if you aren't in it already. We opened up a few more spots, so definitely check out dateablepodcast.com/sounding board.
Absolutely. So you brought up the would you rather for this week, and the question is sort of a complicated one, but it's if there was a service that could aggregate all of the compatibility tests ranging from attachment styles, Myers-Briggs, astrology, love languages, Enneagram, schemas, etc., all of it, to give you a list of people who are most compatible with you, would you rather to have a full list of full names of people who are compatible with you, but they could be anywhere in the world and it doesn't take into account duplicate names? Or would you rather have a list of the number of people who are most compatible with you within a 0.5 mile radius of wherever you are?
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, so I want to maybe a clarified question that you could give me. Is the 0.5 miles by design in this question? Because that's pretty close to your home.
It's pretty close to your home. Yes. Well, at first we had it, I was thinking about a 1 mile radius, but depending on where you are, 1 mile radius could either cover a lot of people or nobody at all. But 0.5, that could be someone literally in your dorm room. It could be someone in your apartment complex. It could be a neighbor. And it's something that I think could determine your next location, wherever you want to move to.
Oh, so you would find out, like, let's say you hypothetically had 0 people in a 0.5 radius of where you are today. Would that be the info you get?
The number changes based on wherever you are.
Got it. So if I had 0 in my current location, I could move somewhere else and then see.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah. But the other one is just it's a list of names. That's it. That's not changing because that's your full list. Is exhaustive.
So I was going to go with the 0.5 miles, but then I was just thinking, that's why I asked the clarifying question. I was just thinking, that's really small. Yeah. So what if there was 0 people on that list? Like if there was like 2 or 3, you could at least abstract it out to figure out how many were in your general area. But if it's 0, it'd be really hard to keep moving locations in hope of finding someone all the time. So therefore, I'm going to opt for the list. So I was just thinking about it, I'm like, okay, I'm in San Francisco, no one. Then I either have to move to a different area or I have to like move to LA or like Seattle. Like that could be like a never ending thing.
It's true. I mean, but it's also if you're on vacation, if you're out walking around, you can explore different neighborhoods. Obviously, we're kind of opposing here because I would choose the 0.5 mile radius. It would inspire me to get out of my neighborhood. It would inspire me to travel, and it would set me on this like investigative hunt for best matches. If I knew there were 50 15 people within a 0.5-mile radius of me who are potential best matches, I'm going to be out walking my dog like every hour of the day.
Well, originally I was going to say that because I believe that people can find things in common with anyone, even if they don't have commonalities. Like there's always some commonality. So my initial thought was like, I'd choose for not the list. So then I would just explore and like organically still meet those people, and it would give me hope that there's those people out there. But I think just running the risk of having like no one on that list would be terrifying to me. So I'm gonna go with the original. I'm gonna get my full list of people and
get your full list.
Stalk them heavily on LinkedIn and Facebook. Although, what would you say to them? Like, hey, we're a perfect match. I'm reversing. I don't know what I would actually do with that information. I might have to go back.
And my other thing is, here's this. Okay, some of the names may be very unique, but some of the names may be very common or mainstream, like a Joe McDonald. So what if you are dating a Joe McDonald and there's a Joe McDonald on your list, but it's not that one, but you keep trying to like retrofit this Joe McDonald to you're like, no, this is really the one. I don't know. Maybe I'm just making this more complicated, but I agree. Like, what would you do?
You could retrofit anyone though, in theory. Like if you knew that there's 15 people, whoever you met, you would try to retrofit.
That's true. You could be like, ooh, are you the one of the 15?
Yeah, it reminds me of like that MTV show, like, Are You the One? When you're like searching for them in the house.
Yeah, and you don't know which one. But you do make a more conscious effort for everyone you meet, because now you know there are 15 people near you. Everyone you meet could be a possibility. So you give them a little bit more time and attention. I don't know.
Okay. I'm undecided overall, but I'm gonna...
Julie's now just confused. She's like, fuck it.
My head is spinning. But
I don't want to do it.
Now, if I'm going to go with one of them, I think I might actually change my answer to the 0.5-mile radius, because I don't know what I would actually say to someone. Like, I'm just thinking about if I got a message from someone on Facebook being like, hey, we're the perfect match. It'd be like, delete, like, what the fuck? So what does that do? Okay. What did the people say?
The people said 70% chose they want the full names.
Oh.
And 30% said they want the number. And, I think people who are sort of into like murder mysteries are into the number. Like Janet, she's like, just a number. That way I know. I'm just like out there searching for what percentage of people. And then others are like, no, I'm going to go stalk the internet. I'm going to swipe through every app there is to match these names.
For all those people, I want to know what your like initial line would be, and then maybe I'll switch back over. If it's a line I can get behind, like that doesn't sound stalker and creepy, I would maybe switch back over to the other side.
I think some people would use this list to compare against their list of exes. I'm not sure if most people will use this to source new people as opposed to trying to validate some of their old people. Just a theory there.
Interesting. Okay, well, maybe one day someone's going to send me that message that they got the list and I'm on it. And then now I won't think they're a total creep because of this. So
and then
great.
You search for Julie Kraftchick online and there's like 3,000 in the world.
No, I would actually be a great candidate for
You would be.
Someone hit me up on LinkedIn. What was his name? I was going to say my brother's name. It's not that. It was some other Kraftchick, and he was like Jared Freid or something. And I'm like, whoa, this is weird. It's not a common name.
It's not. Good for you. My name is way too common in China. There's like
I was
50
like, not
million.
in the US, but yes.
Not in the US, but there's like 50 million of them in China. So it'd be very hard. And it's also a predominantly boy's name. Whoever got my name on their list, woo!
Confused. Very confusing.
Very confused. I like that you brought up the name Jared, though, because that is the name of our guest today. Is that what was on your mind?
I don't actually know if that guy's name is Jared. I might just be like blending them together. I'll stay tuned for next week, but he just like hit me up on LinkedIn and was like, hey, fun thing, I'm also a Kraftchick. I'm like, okay, accept.
Is he single? Is he cute? What?
I think I don't know, he is kind of cute.
Get on it. You don't have to change your last name.
I don't think he's single. I think he might be married, but we'll see. He's a YouTuber, actually.
Okay, we got to get on this train. We got to get on that Kraftchick train. But before we do,
I was like, is that a tie into the J train?
Yeah, yes. Before the craft chick train, we got to get on the J train, which is a Jared Freid train. But before we get on the Jared Freid train, we got to get on the sponsor train. We like to take a moment to thank our sponsor. And a scene. All right, starting over, breathe. Okay, we really seriously would like to take a moment to thank our sponsor, BetterHelp. Think about this. What is interfering with your happiness? What is something that is preventing you from achieving your goals? For a lot of us, it is getting our mental health in order. And we've definitely found this. Julie and I were like, oh, mental health, that's got to be priority. So BetterHelp is a service that can assess your needs and match you with your own licensed professional therapist. They connect you in a safe and private online environment, and you can start communicating with a therapist in under 24 hours. You'll get timely and thoughtful responses, plus you can schedule weekly video or phone sessions. BetterHelp is committed to facilitating great therapeutic matches, so they make it easy and free to change counselors if needed. So their licensed professional counselors specialize in everything from anger, family conflicts, dealing with family during the holidays, depression, stress, anxiety, relationships, sleeping, trauma, etc. You name it, they deal with it. And everything that you share is completely confidential. In fact, so many people have been using BetterHelp that they're recruiting additional counselors in all 50 states. So we want you to start living a better, happier life today. And as a listener, you'll get 10% off your first month by visiting betterhelp.com/dateable. Join over 1 million people taking charge of their mental health. Again, that's BetterHelp, spelled HELP.com/dateable. Yee-hoo! Okay, can we get to Jared?
Let's do it.
Not Jared Craft Chick. Not Jared Craft Chick, but here's Jared Freid. We've got Jared Freid, who currently is in New York City, originally from Boston. He's 35 years old in a monogamous relationship. Are you what is behind you? Are there stuffed animals and stuff?
There's stuffed animals. That's Stuart and Bruce. And I've been moved to the bedroom because my girlfriend has an interview. Something was important enough to get me away from my podcast station where we drew lots and I got the short.
Is this not an interview? What are we doing here?
Well, you guys, yours was less important. Yours made less money than the other one. So
obviously, there we go. We know where
we're
stand
just
here.
Really intimate. We're in Jared's bedroom here. So
that's
all good.
Yeah, I like that.
This is where none of the magic happened. It's a cozy podcast situation.
Yes, I like it.
Cozy.
Let's get cozy. Who is Jared? For anybody who doesn't know, Jared is a comedian and the podcast host, a co-host of the You Up podcast, and he is the host of the J Train podcast that goes.
That's right.
I love your intro because when I first heard it, I was like, "Is there something wrong with my phone? What's happening?" And then that really you have a very grand entrance. You ride up on your train, you know.
Well, the whole podcast is ridiculous in general. It's called the J Train Podcast, and somehow we give life advice on something called the J Train. So that already is ridiculous. So it's why not have it like a WWE entrance into the show? Why not?
So I have a burning question for you, Jared.
Burning.
This is so burning. When we were looking up your bio, I looked on your Twitter and it said that you were the inventor of the You Up text.
Yeah, tell us more about that. And how can you claim that? Do you have proof? It's a timestamp. I was
joking. I don't think you can really invent trying to get a woman to come, to hang out with you after midnight. But I was joking. I was just that would be a funny bio, inventor of the You Up text. And I forget how long it's been there for, but it's been there a long time. I didn't even, I've just never changed.
So did you send a lot of You Up? I mean, now that you're in a committed relationship.
I hope not.
I sent it to her next to me in bed.
Back to single Jared, though. Were you a massive You Up texter?
I understand that it's funny to be I invented the idea of being that kind of late night. Well, we'll take a shot, that's really what a You Up text is. Huh?
I have another burning question. So on your podcast, you claim that you respond to all your DMs. Mm-hmm. My dog DM'd you yesterday, but you did not respond to him.
Nope. Okay, so tell the audience what you wrote in your DM. These are roads I don't go into.
What's your stance on puppy play?
On puppy play. So to me, that to me was like, I'm not even gonna go down this road. I didn't know it was you, obviously, but like I was like, oh, this is like, honestly, with how the internet is, I was like, oh, this is a person that wants me to like gets off at me looking at their puppy, and they're on the other side of the line touching themselves while if I answer yes, they're going to be like, oh, good, that felt great. And now they're going to screenshot it. And now I'm involved in puppy play. Like whenever it's
hear that?
It's just unleashing too much. We actually did an episode about puppy play recently, actually. Like, so it's a fetish. It's like people wear, like, you got to go to our YouTube. We have like the whole puppy play attire.
Is it like a
that
furry?
You put on. It's like
they're related. Sometimes it's not. Yeah. It also could not be. It could be like non-sexual. It's just more like love being like playful, like an animal.
Roll around,
be a puppy,
like a pet.
I've said this many times in my podcast that's kind of like there's a fetish really for anything. Like, it's
for
like,
sure.
You know, you wouldn't even know that someone would be like, "Oh, is that your elbow? Oh my god, elbow!"
Let me lick it.
But this is the thing. Like with DMs, I answer all DMs, but first of all, you got to follow me.
Oh yeah.
Because if you follow me, then I'll answer. But if you don't follow, I'm like, why would I give you time if you won't even give me the time?
Oh, yeah. Mojo definitely follows.
It can't get into territory of sexual nature. I'm in a relationship that can only take me down. Even if I'm joking around, two people have to know they're joking.
Right.
You know, like,
right,
and now that I know it was you, I'm like, now it makes sense. But I legitimately saw it and I went, no, I'm not.
Not touching
this
that.
isn't worth my time. Not touching.
Okay, so all of our female listeners love you because you're like the guy that tells it straight, right? Like,
yeah, the male listeners are like, no thanks. Just kidding.
No. We have many male listeners that also love you. One of our like devoted listeners got his profile reviewed by
Jason,
live shows,
yes.
so he's always loving you. But I want to know, how did you get into this? Like, where were you at when you started all this?
So my podcast, the J Train podcast, used to be called the TFM podcast. If you remember Total Frat Move. Total Frat Move is or was a website, it still exists, where they were like basically like a bar stool for fraternity life is basically how I would describe it. And it kind of just became my own thing. And they were like, can we have our name back? And I was like, yeah. And I was like, first started the podcast, I just wanted to talk on the radio. I just thought, we'll figure it out. I'll create a show. And then I said at the end, I was like, send in your emails. And I had already written for Total Frat Move a bunch of articles. So I kind of had like a little bit of a trust with the audience to like send an email that would be maybe a question. I wrote a lot about dating because that's what's going on in my life. I talked about that a lot on stage. I talked about being single and kind of the pitfalls of modern day dating. And I think people just had a trust that I was going to like not make fun of them for their issue. I think with a lot of this stuff, anyone could look at you at the brunch table. Anyone can look at you at the Zoom happy hour and go, dump him. There's more important things. Like,
of course, yeah.
2020, you're caring about this. And it's like, well, why didn't he text me back? And it's like, and also a lot of people have their own shit going on. So they're like, I have someone not texting me back too. So when do we get to my issue? So I started getting these questions, and I've always gotten dating questions from my female friends, just general. And I think that's it because one, I like the conversation. I think it's interesting. And two, I think also I remind a lot of people of a guy that they're probably dating. Like, I'm an okay looking dude. I'm not a bad looking. I'm not like a model. I'm not bad looking, but I'm somewhere in the middle, you know? And I think also in the beginning, a lot of women weren't listening to podcasts. And so I'm on Total Frat Move. So I had a lot of male listeners, and all their questions were not as interesting. It was like, met this chick, how do I fuck? That was basically like a lot of the questions.
How do I get laid? Yep.
How do I get laid?
Yeah.
I met this girl. Does she
know.
want, you know?
Yes, I did this for years.
So
not to get laid, just fielding questions, getting laid.
Sure. And
Sure.
No, but you know the male questions just aren't that interesting
all the same.
for the most part. A lot of the male questions are about ending something with someone you like? That's a very
Yeah.
specific male question.
I do want to call out, though, I think it's evolved over the
Yes.
years. Because I think when like, you guys are talking about like a bunch of years
And
back.
it's also a total frat move. I mean, that's that's your audience there.
Exactly.
But that's where
yeah.
it changed, because all of a sudden Serial comes out. Serial was the first podcast that was listened to by women. And now women are getting into podcasts. And now all these like female driven podcasts are coming
Like
out.
us.
Because, and I remember when it happened, because I knew that there was an audience for the show I was doing, and I knew I wasn't in front of the right. And not to say that those weren't great people, and they're not, like they are, but I'm just saying like I thought I could go wider. And then I started going on female centric shows, and I started having Jordana, Aileen, and Sammy from Betches on, and I was like, oh wow, the dynamic with me and a woman is like with a woman and I is so much more fun and interesting. And then I started getting women writing in, and those emails were so depthy and layered. And I had a very specific opinion on what they were talking about. And then I think that encourages, I think it becomes a snowball thing. And then it encourages like a guy to be more depthy, a woman to be, a woman to say, oh, he's good at answering these. I trust this guy to not make me feel like a bad person for writing. Because a lot of these things are icky situations. A lot of them involve like, sex and dating and the inner, like feelings. And like, I think like it takes a lot of trust so that, over time, absolutely. Like the questions have gotten so good.
So what are because I guess like that's one of our questions is like, what are the biggest questions you've gotten from women of like the bad behavior that they see that they want to know what to do?
I don't want to call it bad behavior.
Okay.
Because I think everybody that ends up with someone, that person you ended up with was not great to someone else for the most part. So like, let's offer a little bit of empathy. To me, it's a lot of survival. If you're, and I think it goes into like how you're brought up. Like we give a lot of women the credit of like the Disney princess thing. Like we're like, oh, we were brought up with Prince Charming, and that is fucked up. Like that's societal shit that like whatever. You can try and change it for your child. It's not going to happen right away, but you should. If that's something that bothers you, go ahead, change it for your kid. I don't think men get the same type of leeway with that stuff. I don't like the idea of being a gentleman is all just to lie to women. The idea of being like, and you're brought up that way. Oh, the door open for her. It's like, well, why? Because that's the nice thing to do. Okay, that does feel good to do, but like that is, I'm not saying to go slam doors in women's faces, but that lives in a little bit of a lie. Don't hurt her feelings. Like, well, should I not be honest? Like, I think you're caught in a lot of, and I'm not trying to make an excuse. I'm just saying that there's excuses everywhere. I'm just saying like and a lot of these guys like are offered the ability, like no one looks down on a guy for not getting married. Right? No one's looking at us going, hey, what, and that's an unfair thing to women. I remember I had a friend, she's like killing her career. And she told me, she was like, the first question is always, who am I dating? And it's like, if I were a man, maybe I wouldn't be asked those questions. I was like, yeah, that's probably true. That sucks, but on the other side of that, if a guy's never asked that question, then there's really no pressure to lock, things down and get in a relationship. And maybe they are, because of that, they're like, well, I'm just going to sit here and not really care about time, not really care about like wasting someone's time or wasting my own time.
Let's hold that thought for a sec. We'll get right back to it. Now, the holidays are the perfect time to get a little bit more glammed up, even if you're attending more virtual parties than past years. Thrive Cosmetics, yes, cosmetics instead of cosmetics, is one of our favorite beauty brands that we discovered this year. Their products are high performance, award-winning, and are both vegan and cruelty-free. The clinically proven formulas highlight your best features and improve your skin over time. Our go-to, and Julie, I know you love this one, is the award-winning mascara called Liquid Lash Extensions.
So good.
And I don't know about anybody else, but I have not been able to get my lash extensions this year because COVID. And this product makes my lashes so long, I've been asked if I'm wearing extensions. This flake-free, smudge-free, and clump-free product has more than 7,000 five-star reviews and won Glamour's Best Clean Beauty Product of 2020 award for the best mascara. And now a lot of their holiday sets include a free tube of this mascara. Plus, for every product you buy, they donate to help a woman thrive. Yes, that's where the cosmetics come from. Start thriving and help women in need today by going to thrivecosmetics.com/dateable for 15% off your first purchase. That's Thrive, CAUSE medics.com/DATEABLE for 15% off. And one more quick announcement from us. Let's face it, it's a weird time to be dating or developing relationships. Have you recently decided that you want to make some changes to your love life? Maybe you've recently re-entered the dating scene. Maybe you've gone on one too many dates that went nowhere. Or maybe you're ready to take your current relationship to the next level. That is exactly why we created the Sounding Board, a true extension of our podcast that delivers a personalized experience, which includes one-on-one coffee dates with us, a monthly Dateable Live after show, exclusive audio content, and much more. Allow Julie and I become your dating Sherpas to provide real-time guidance and wisdom in a more intimate way so we can navigate dating and relationships together. Join the Sounding Board today by going to dateablepodcast.com/sounding board. Again, that's dateablepodcast.com/sounding board. Okay, let's get back into this convo. I want to spend a little bit of time on this because I find this fascinating that
me too.
Being a gentleman means to lie, which also just means that most men who are trying to be gentlemen or trying to display this kind of behavior doesn't know the root of why they're doing it. And therefore it's somewhat of a lie, or they feel like it's expected behavior, but they can't get to the root of why this behavior is expected.
Yeah, I don't want to say that like being a gentleman is a bad thing. Like I don't mean it that way. Mm-hmm. And I hear what you're saying, but I do think, here's an example. When I started You Up with Jordana, when we started the You Up podcast, which is Jordana and I, the Betches, I love working with them.
Yeah, they're great.
Have an amazing company. I love everything they're doing. And there's been nobody that's been creatively like easier to work with than them. They called me and they're like, hey, we want to start a podcast with you from the male and female perspective on dating. And we got to give it a name, but we want you to be the male. And I'm like, okay, great. I kind of had my point of view. I was going to be honest, but like now I'm entering into like the Betches world of audience. Like they come with 6 million, 7 million majority women. We taped the first episode and I remember thinking, I was like, man, I think these women are going to hate me. Like, I was like, I don't want to like, we're going to get so much negativity. I'm going to feel so bad because I do feel bad when there's negative emails back. I look into we've only gotten really 2 negative emails since starting or negative enough for Jordana to send them. I think that's pretty amazing. And I think what I realized from that, like what does that all mean was how appreciative of messages I get for just being honest. And I don't think I knew that as a single guy. Like, I don't think I knew how appreciated. And listen, sometimes honesty means you're giving up the ability to have sex. And that's why a lot of guys aren't honest, because you have to like kind of fake it. Like, you know, most guys aren't studs. Most guys aren't pickup artists. So their way of picking up women is to act like they would if they were trying to date them. So that is, you know, I don't think they all knowingly do this, but I think that is something that's happening, especially with dating apps. It gives you the ability to be out every night when you're not a guy that goes out every night. It gives you the ability to talk to women you never would have talked to in a bar. So you've kind of gotten this like superhero serum injected in your blood because of this dating app to make you something that you're not really are. But that's another story. But I'm saying, like, when I would talk about these things, the appreciation for like, hey, this is really fun. I'm really attracted to you. I'm just here to like be casual, totally casual. Like, that's not really gentlemanly, you know, like, hey, this has been a great night. I just want to fuck you. I have no idea what the end of this is going to be. If fucking you means that you're going to be like thinking that this is going to be more than that, I can't promise you. All I can promise you is tonight. Like, that loses you the fuck, but also is hard to say to a human being. Hey, I love you, but I don't ever see myself married. Like, how do you say that to someone? That's very difficult. So I think there was like, the feedback I get is an appreciation for the honesty and an appreciation to hear like, hey, it wasn't personal about you. I think a lot of these things aren't personal. For a lot of guys, like is on a spectrum. The idea of like, yeah, I like her. Okay, so you want to be serious? No, I don't want to be serious. So you want to be exclusive? I'll be exclusive, but no label. It's like, what the fuck is that? Like the guy doesn't know what that is either. But he's just trying to figure out a way to not, snowball into something where he's the person who's the asshole who forced, this into serious land. I think so. That's what I mean by the gentleman thing, like where it's just like it's hard. Again, it's hard for everybody.
I mean, usually even like stuff like ghosting, it's not coming, most of the time, it's not coming from a bad place. It's usually coming from a place like, I don't want to disappoint this person. If I say no, maybe I'll keep the door slightly open. So if I change my mind in a month, but it still hurts the people on the receiving side.
Ghosting is fear, and it's all fear and self-preservation. Yeah. And it's also a product of, and why does it happen more now? Because we meet more people without a lot of eyes on us. So like you meet someone random on Bumble.
Right.
That's easy to ghost. There's no one that looks at you and goes, like, I always say that you should meet someone. The best way to meet someone is through a family member, because if I ever ghosted someone that like my aunt introduced me to, she'd be horrified. She'd be like, wait, what happened?
Yeah. You'd be such a dick.
Yeah. I'd be like, well, she blew me. And then like 3 months later, and then I've been ignoring her. She's texted me like 8 times. She'd be like, what's wrong with you? Like it'd be disgusting. So there's no aunts in the dating app scenario.
Well, I think a lot of the dating conundrums stem from not being comfortable with ambiguity and uncertainty. Mm-hmm. So for the men that you're mentioning, they're unsure where they like someone on a scale is exactly the same as a woman who's like, where do we stand on a relationship scale? Mm-hmm. I want to DTR, but we're also somewhere in the middle with a situationship. And that's what causes the conflict, is we're all constantly looking for a definition of something in dating, when that definition cannot be provided sometimes. We just can't rest in that uncertainty. Why is that? Why are we so uncomfortable with that?
I mean, obviously, if I knew and I had the the formula, nobody would have issues. Don't? Yeah, right.
You'd be a zillionaire,
it's as valuable as a COVID vaccine. I think, but I will say that based on the questions I get, I think a lot of people rate how they feel based on the person based on the feelings of the person they're seeing. If he likes me, I like him. And I think that's a really dangerous way to go. It never works, because you're never going to know how someone else feels. And this is hard to do. This is easier said than done. You don't want to approach someone that you're embarrassing yourself with. But like, I tend to believe, I don't think we all trust ourselves enough. We don't trust, like I get this question on Instagram stories sometimes where it's like, someone will be like, I don't want to be too much. I don't want to get ahead of myself. And it's like, go ahead, get ahead of yourself. Like, you're not crazy. You're not like, what does get ahead of yourself mean? Text a few times, ask to hang out more. Like, it's not like you're going over and shitting on the floor and being like, clean it up. This is my new fetish. And you're in,
How to bring it back to fetishes.
It's like, we're all right of mind. So like, for the most part, we all, for whatever reason, most of us think of ourselves in the extremes instead of that big fat part of the graph. And it's like, what I always say is like, whatever your thing is of thinking you're too much or you're getting ahead of yourself, imagine the person you're seeing complaining to their friends about you. And see if that complaint sounds ridiculous. Like imagine that guy going to his friends being like, can you believe this girl? She keeps texting me to hang out. All she wants to do is sleep over. She won't stop wanting to get good food. You'd be like, oh,
sex, all
the friends would go, what's wrong with you? Do you like her? And he would have to go, well, not enough to do with these things. At least you get your answer. So it's like, be too much. Be what you are. You'll hear a yes or a no. That kind of reverses it. That's where instead of like, if they like me, I like them. It's, I like you. Oh, you don't like me? Right. Okay, I'm out. I think a perspective change is needed. And it has to happen because there's too many options out there for you to sit there and go, well, maybe if he wants you, he'll show you. Like, I don't really
he'll fight for you.
Rules.
Yeah.
I think there's a thing with guys, and I see this a lot lately, where it's like they want to find a way to be honest. I think they do. I think the questions I'm getting from guys is like, I want to be, like I had a question the other day. I was like, I want to be out there. I want to be having sex. I want to be like meeting new people. I am looking for a relationship. But on my way to there, there's a bunch of women I would like to fuck. Well, that's a part of how I look for someone to be in a relationship.
Yeah, that's honesty.
And I think again, like, just like the guys have to learn, like a lot of the women have to learn, like, you date to find out. You don't just date to get in a relationship. Right. You date to like work to see if this is the match. And it's like, you have to have taste. And if the person you're dating has no taste, then how much fun is that? Like, so I think like sex gets brought into this, but like, if you're a person that can't have sex without getting ahead of yourself, and you're going to be monumentally broken by a sexual relationship that doesn't end up in marriage, then you have to admit that to yourself as well. Like, you have to like take ownership of and that takes time. That's not easy. Like, owning your relationship with sex, like, that's the hardest part. Like, we talk a lot about that on You Up, where it's like, listen, no guy's staying with you because you had sex.
Right.
So if you're not cool with the sex you're having or the reasons you're having that sex, then it's not going to fix the problems. It's not going to fix. So I think that's like a big part of this too, where it's like, hey, like, the person you're with wanting to have sex does not mean that you're going to feel good having that sex. And like, just because you have a relationship with sex, that's one thing, doesn't mean the person across from you has the same relationship with sex.
Right, exactly.
And that's a tough discussion to have. Like, hey, we're going to have sex now. Totally. Yeah, this means as much to me as a shower. And some people, they're like, what? That's no. I don't mean that about you. I'm just saying, this sex doesn't make me more emotionally involved with you. It makes me the same amount of, you were cute, I liked you on the date, I'm having fun with you, I trust you. And that's an icky thing to talk about, an icky thing to hear. Even saying it, I feel bad. I don't want anyone to think that I'm like trying to lessen anyone's experience. I don't think.
I think you said something super interesting that, like, I think sometimes people overcompensate now, especially men, that they're like, I don't want to lead people on. I don't want to do this. But what you said is, some of it we just need, it's like part of the course of dating. Like, a lot of times you do just need to like hook up to see if it's a good compatible fix. And that's not just a man thing. Like, I'm sure I've done that before and then decided it's not too. So
yeah, it's if both parties aren't ready to walk away from the table, then that's when relationships don't work. That's when people start to feel like they owe someone. Like, I think a lot of guys never want to get a position where they owe someone. That's why, like, I always say on the podcast, I'm like, beware vacations, holidays, and global pandemics, because that's why a lot of breakups happen before what's going on, because guys saw, okay, now we've been away from each other for 2 weeks. I don't really owe them anything because we haven't had sex in the last week. And now it's not like I just fucked and chucked. Now I have this reason that is very easy to like understand, and I don't have to blame it on, well, I kind of like you, but I don't see a long-term future. Like, you could go, with the pandemic, my job's in the air and I don't know what to do. I think we should end. Now it's not about me. It's not about me not liking you. And that's where a lot of confusion comes up of like, well, he said he still likes me, but it's just the pandemic. It's like, no. It's the pandemic and you're not the match.
Yeah. It's how we shift the narrative to hurt the least amount of feelings for the other person and ourselves. So we tell ourselves these stories of these external factors. Oh, it's because of that.
Yes.
Or it's because of whatever that's going on. It's out of my control. When we don't, a lot of times in dating, we don't take responsibility for our own feelings. Or I would even go as far as saying we don't know our own feelings. We don't spend the time getting to know our own feelings.
This is why so many people have these like, oh, we had the best weekend together.
Yes.
Like, because this guy was in town and we met on the app and he was coming back to town every few weeks and we had the best weekend together. And it's like, yeah, it's easy to be good for a weekend.
Yeah. Because you're not doing life together.
Right.
Yeah. And there's a built-in excuse. Hey, I'm never back in the city. This is going to be a little ridiculous, but we can't keep going. And it's like, that's why it almost like, it's like wearing a belay. It's like wearing like a rope when you have those built-in excuses. That's why people are like, we connected in a way that was so crazy. It's like, yeah, because there was an exit door.
Yes. Before we hopped on this call with you, we were saying, Julie and I were saying how we want to get to know your personal life a little bit more. So I feel like I want to shift our topic to over there, because you started out as a comedian. So my question to all comedians is, who broke your heart to make you get into comedy?
I don't really buy that that narrative with comedians. Everyone I remember I was at like like a Thanksgiving a few years back, and my aunt was like, "They say all comedians are depressed." I was like, "Well, no, I don't. That's like a really mean thing." No, I like making people laugh. I love doing stand up. The whole thing is about doing stand up. Everything I do is to serve as stand up, to go on stage and talk about things that will make a room laugh together. At a certain point, it became a little bit of an obsession. You start doing less of the things you don't like. And I started doing 4 or 5 open mics a night, and I would do them every night. And, when my friends were getting married and having kids, I was kind of just doing stand up.
So were you like a relationship guy, or were you more like casually dating? Like, what was your life like at this point?
I was somewhere in between. I was a big 10-monther.
Okay.
So
that's very specific.
I would go 10 months, and then I would see that where it wasn't the right match for me, and I would kind of move on. I wish I was a better casual dater than I was.
Do you think there was something about the year mark that freaked you out?
I think it was also like hey, we're not getting married. I think a lot of times, and the train doesn't stop with relationships. You get on at the station, hey, we're a couple, and now we're heading towards moving. And then we're heading towards engagement. And then we're heading towards the wedding. Then we're heading towards the baby 1, then the baby 2. And that doesn't change. And anytime people try to stop that train, there's a problem. And people want to ignore that. And they say, well, we took a step back. Well, that's not normally how it goes. That's just 9 out of 10. It's you're on that train, and it either you get off at one of the station stops or you keep going. And that's kind of what happened to me. Like we'd be in these 10 months, and it's like, okay, well, what next? When's the trip? First date, second date, third date, fuck, and then 4th date, 5th date, 6th date, parents, and then 6th date, 7th date, 8th date, 9th date, trip. And then, 10th date, 11th date, 12th date, Instagram post. Like that's kind of like
that's like really official.
Instagram post is after parents. Wait, I want to rewind. I was like, this is a very interesting timeline. And now in quarantine, it's all in like the first week.
In the first month. So I think there's a lot of faking naivete with that structure of things. Like a lot of women will be like, well, I'm not looking to get married right away. It's like, you don't have to say that. You are looking for this to keep growing and to keep getting to know each other. That's okay.
Well, it goes back to what you were saying before about honesty, right?
Yeah.
It goes back to all the honesty stuff. Like no one wants to just say their intentions because they're afraid that people will leave at that point.
And say no to it and go, well, I'm not ready for that. And then they go, well, why? And you go, well, I don't really know why. And then at that point, you have to own your own feelings. You have to go, well, I do enjoy you. I'm going to stay with this. And you make, all of these are like business decisions. All of these become like, you know what? He's not ready to say I love you yet, but I love him. And I'm going to stay here because I believe in loving him more than going out and finding the next person. Like there's a math equation that all of us are doing.
How long have you been with your current girlfriend?
A little more than 2 years.
Okay, so you passed 2 10-month marks.
Yeah.
Congratulations. What changed? What changed with this one?
I think it's a combination of many things. Like I love her. I'm very happy with her. We connect on a very like an amazing level. Also like, I became more comfortable as myself and became more comfortable in my career, and things were moving forward with, I started finding a little bit more success here and there, making some money doing comedy and feeling a little bit better about doing some of the relationship things that do take away from doing what you want to do. And if you don't I think like, if you don't want to take the trip to meet the other person's parents because you're like, well, I have to work, that's not really fun. That's not really, you're not really like actively participating to me. I think those all go hand in hand. I think if I wasn't really moving forward in my career, I wouldn't be able to open my head up to meeting someone and to taking the night off to go on a date, and 2, hey, what are we, being more, available for something.
Right. We hear that a lot.
Yeah, it's always the $1 million question with men. Is it the person that you meet the right person, or is it that you're ready? Like, and maybe it doesn't have to be inclusive of both sometimes.
Yeah, it's really hard to answer because anyone could look at that and go and see it as a negative towards my girlfriend. That's not the case. I think it's a perfectly positive thing to say. And also, like, this is a big thing for all guys. I think, like, again, the societal stuff that I'm not saying as an excuse, but I am saying we have to admit that it exists. Like, is that, like, a lot of your self-worth is out of your ability to provide and your ability to, like, do things and be someone that you're maybe a child could look up to, and feeling good about what you're doing on a daily basis and feeling like you have worth. Like, that's why a lot of relationships end during COVID. They lost a job and they're going, I don't feel worth it right now. Why would I be with someone where I don't even love myself?
Right. And I mean, I've had that happen firsthand, like in a serious relationship. Like, my significant other, or ex now, just was not in the place of being good where he was at. And it really did hinder. And I think this, like, kind of ties back to what we were talking about earlier, but, like, as, like, a woman, sometimes it's hard to know, like, is it a legit reason that they're just not, or are they just kind of blowing smoke up your ass? So I
think anybody that ends something, it's a legit reason. Like, whatever that reason is, if someone ends it, it was important enough to them to end it. It's hard to end something. So if that was looming that much for them, the legitimacy of it, like, of what the words are, but the action was very difficult to do. And it's a really hard thing with the whole idea of, like, okay, because date one is cheap. Dating is cheap. Being casual is cheap. Being in a relationship is expensive, as far as with your time, as far as with your effort level, as far as with where you go next. Like, I see it with my stuff. It's like, I'm going to be going to St. Louis this weekend to do shows. And we have to, like, be totally, like, I have to be in a relationship where someone's okay with that, with me leaving Thursday through Sunday. And if she said to me, well, if she got mad every time I left, I would go, we can't be together. And that's not because I don't love my girlfriend. That's because I need to be able to feel like I'm moving forward with my career to also love myself, to be able to love you. Like, those both go hand in hand, and they sound like self-help talk, and they sound really kind of like, you generally don't hear a lot of guys say, I have to love myself to be able to love you. And it's just, I think that's, like, it takes time and age and figuring that out. Like, no one wants to be the guy. And I think with women, maybe like the house and the children, this is all like status structure, like status items. Sometimes a child can be like, I'm doing it. I'm achieving at the table. I'm doing well with my friends. I'm not saying that's fair or right, but it seems like the competition, as far as, like, she's got the ring, she's got the kids, the Instagram post with the messy ponytail and the dog over one shoulder and the baby over the other shoulder, got it all. I don't think people have it all when they put up that picture, but I'm just saying that for some can be enough. Like, I don't think there's any guy that's like, I just got to get that house with the dog over my shoulder and the messy bun. Like, I think they're saying, I want to be able to afford that house and have the room downstairs and be respected by that woman who has the messy bun.
Well, it kind of, like, all just comes down to readiness, I think, in some way. For, like, it depends if you're ditching out on, like, early dates versus you're in a relationship. Like you said, it's a conscious decision to leave. I think those are very different scenarios. But a lot of times at the root of both of them, there is this, like, this isn't the place I'm supposed to be right now, for whatever reason that is. Like you were saying, I don't want to tell someone I just want to have sex, because that is the truth. But, like, if I say that, then it might not happen. But if that's really where you are right now, like, that is the honesty that's behind it.
Yeah. And where you are. And also, like, if you don't know what you want, so doesn't that other person. Like, I think, like, this idea that you're the only one in the world who doesn't know what they want or isn't sure, that's crazy. Everyone's unsure. Everyone's kind of like day to day and just trying to survive and eat, sleep, and fuck and feel good about those things. And it's like, I think, like, if you look at it from that perspective and realize, like, it's not that personal to you, it's more they're going through their own shit, and being with someone isn't the best way they believe to get through that shit. Yeah.
And back to you, how long have you two been living together?
We moved in April, beginning of
this
whole shitstorm.
UA was a quarantine.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes, and then
how's that been?
It's much better now. The first month was rough. I think it was just expediting our relationship and removing, like what you were saying before, you can spend a lovely, awesome, amazing weekend together because that's how our relationship was, to now seeing each other every day, taking conference calls and try to plan out meals. That's like the non-sexy shit comes in. And then you're like, wait, now this is a totally different dynamic. So I'm curious to hear what you've learned in your, well, first of all, have you lived with another girlfriend before?
I've never lived with a girlfriend. I've learned that I do everything very messy and wrong.
According to her.
According to her, I am a slob. I poop wrong.
You poop?
I poop at the back of the. I poop at the back of the seat. I didn't know that.
Why? Because are you leaving? Are you leaving? Surprises.
I guess
for her?
so. She finds, and it's always surprising me. I'll be like, "Oh, that looks like." I'll do a check, and then she'll come back and be like, "Did you go?" And I'll be like, "Oh shit! How did you find that?" I think she goes over after with like a
blue light. She's like
a magnify.
Yeah,
that's feces.
Who wants to get into a relationship now after hearing this?
Everyone's like, "Oh, phew! I didn't get into one with Jared." I think it's hard in COVID because there's no like missing each other, and I think like you need some of that in a relationship. I think you need like to go into like, you need to get away from each other for like a work day and then go, hey, let's go out for drinks and discuss our work day. And it's like, I think that becomes harder because there's no real like, hey, look how good you look for work. And, come back. And not to say she doesn't look great in whatever she's wearing. I'm just saying it's just that change up. It becomes a very, the same a lot. And I'm sure she's thinking the same thing.
Good thing you're going away this weekend.
Right.
Okay, as a bystander to UA's relationship, I see a huge difference. I don't know your relationship, Jared, so I won't comment, but I see a massive difference. Like you were alluding to earlier, like you would spend the weekend together, but now you're doing life together more. Have you seen those shifts also with this time?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, we do everything together. So like we do if I go get coffee, do you want coffee? Like, it's like, if I'm going to go and like walk around and like take a call outside, where were you? It's like, you wouldn't do that with me when she was at an office. She wouldn't be like, did you go outside for 2 hours today? Like, yeah, what the fuck? I worked from home for the last 10 years. So I have a kind of like schedule and operating the way I operate. And I think the hardest part is like getting a moment to like understanding that ignoring someone isn't ignoring someone. So like she hates these headphones. Like I'll put these headphones on and I'll just start listening to podcasts. And as I'm doing other things, like as I'm like getting things done, and I think there's a certain momentum to getting things done. Mm-hmm. And then she'll start talking and telling a story and I'll be like,
what?
And I'll just be like,
here.
What? Like I'll put one headphone back and she's like, oh, again. I'm like, well, I'm not here at your disposal. Like I'm not like a phone you can just pick up and I'm just ready to go. Like I have my own headspace that I'm going towards. If I'm going to go do a podcast in a half hour, I like to sit and not talk and zone out. Like, because doing podcasts isn't working in a coal mine, but it's a very zoned in conversation. So I'd like to zone out. Yeah. So I think it's like having those hard conversations of like, it's not, again, 90% of our time is spent like a little ridiculous and we make fun of it being like, we'll be hugging and be like, yeah, we hate each other. Like that type of stuff. We're making fun of it. But there's 10% of time where you're just like, yeah, this isn't about you. Like I need a minute here. I need to do this. I need to whatever,
I think tying it back to our earlier conversation, it's like that is the theme, whether like you're in early stage dating or all the way through, right? It's like there's always two people at the table here. Like we often, we forget that. Like you're only in your own mind a lot of the times. Just kicking off our takeaways from this conversation, there's just been so much that's there. And I think at the end of the day, we're all just trying to figure it out. Like I think we've talked before about like asking people on like a first or second date, like, are you ready for a relationship? relationship? Are you looking for a relationship? And I think it's not a bad thing to have those conversations just to see if they're like wildly off from where you are. But I also don't know if they're always telling 100% either. Because sometimes it's like, I just need to experience and see if we're even the right fit. Like, I might end up wanting to do something, but if I'm not, like, sometimes you need to go through the process to know what it is or not. Like we were talking about with, you know, trying things on for size a little. And I think sometimes we're to dismiss when people are just really, they're not trying to hurt anyone or do anything per se that's bad behavior. I'll get checked on that. But it's like, I'm just a human being and I'm trying to figure it out. So while I'm not excusing bad dating behavior along the way, I think we do all need to just kind of like take it a little less personal and like brush it off a little, that it's not like a reflection of you. It's just someone trying to do their best and figure their own shit out.
Well, any economics class will teach you that people are self-motivated. Even marriage is self-motivated. You know, not in a selfish way. This person makes me feel so good that I have to keep them and make them mine by contract. Like that, like if you look at it in that way, it's all selfish self-motivation that sometimes creates a mutually beneficial relationship. And that is what it's about. And it's like I moved in with my girlfriend because I was having such a great time with her and felt so good about when we were together that I wanted more time together. All of those are I statements. All of those aren't about, you know, and I think if people own their self-motivations more, then they wouldn't be waiting around to try and figure out the place of other people, like with those labeling conversations to find the relationship, to find this, to find that. It's like a lot of times people are just asking for other people to like hold their hand through life. And I don't think that's really fair. I think if you're like, hey, I am enjoying my time with you, I need another date a week or more effort from you. They either do that or they don't. And then you have to review whether you go, maybe I should end this. Maybe I don't like someone who doesn't want to spend more time with me when I'm ready to spend more time with them. Like that's a perfectly reasonable explanation for why a break. Listen, my girlfriend could look at me and go, I've asked you to not shit on the back of the toilet many times. All right. And the way you don't fix it and think is emblematic that you don't listen to me and I need to leave this relationship. Like that's a harsh thing to hear. And then I would go, no, I'll give you one more chance. And then you do it again and you fuck up again. And that speaks to her. I think a lot of times people are like, there's this like question I get and it always leans on should I be mad? Should I care? Should I? And it's like, I can't tell you that. Like and if someone is telling you that, they're trying to make money off of you. If someone's like the 10 rules of dating, I can find you a book that they're going to try and sell you later. Like the make a man want to do that. It's like all those shoulds are ways to like take your own feelings out of it. Like if someone doesn't pay for the date, maybe that makes you feel good. If someone does pay for the date, maybe that makes you feel good. If someone has sex on the first date, maybe you loved that experience and that was great. If someone won't have sex with you and maybe you were like, I don't know about this, it's all your own feelings. So that's why like there's a point where you have to go, okay, I feel this way. I'm asking for this thing. How do I feel now that they have responded?
Yeah, that's very much related to my takeaway, which is this idea of practicing honesty, not just with others, but with yourself first. And the way I see it as, what would you say to yourself if you took the consequences out of the equation? If you didn't think about if you could hurt your feelings or other people's feelings, what would you honestly say? And I think a lot of times we're afraid to have those conversations with ourselves because we're afraid to face the consequences. So I really am, I think this is something we should all live by. It's just practicing honesty with ourselves first. And I love this idea of the relationship train and what you were saying earlier, how once you get on, you like pretty much just keep rolling forward. As someone who experiences firsthand since the pandemic hit, this is a train that keeps rolling, but in a relationship, I see it as like a bicycle and both people are pedaling and you each have a pedal. And if one person pedals forward, the only way to move forward is you got to pedal forward and it takes two. So I think a lot of times our narrative is, oh, she wants kids or she wants a bigger commitment or he wants this. it's not like in a relationship, it's no longer about individual wants. It's about one person proposing. So they take that pedal and they step it forward. And then the other person responding with, I will meet you there. Or let's hold right here. Let's hold still. Because we don't need to pedal forward if we don't want to. But I see that that is what makes you happy, then I will meet you somewhere. So I love the relationship train, but we also should understand that we are in control of this train and that it doesn't we don't let it move just because for the fuck of it. Like, no, it doesn't work like that.
You could take a stop.
Yeah, go pee or like take a shit in the back of that train.
Yeah, I think the whole honesty piece too, it's like, I love this being honest with yourself, because I think if we also take a step back on some of these like bad dating behaviors, right? I'm doing air quotes for anyone that can't see. A lot of them you probably do yourself. I know I've certainly have done them myself. So I think don't see it as men and women. I think a lot of it applies to all of us in this day and age that, yeah, it's like, where is that line though of being honest? And I personally think it's like, if you know, then that's the time to have the conversation. But if you're really just in this state that you're just trying to like, figure things out, then it's not dishonest in that world.
Yeah. People rarely ask themselves, what would it take for me to leave this relationship? Like, what's the thing?
Yeah.
You don't really think about it. Like, what's the thing that would make me so mad that I would have to dump this person? If there's nothing that you would, then maybe you don't have any taste. Maybe you don't really like this person. Maybe you're just happy to be in a relationship. I think that's like a big part of it too. Like, if you're just going to stick around no matter what's going on, like, you have to wonder how much your taste is involved in this relationship. And that's a big part of being honest with yourself, is like, hey, am I just here because this is here, or am I here because I'm fully enjoying it? And I think a lot of people forget to ask themselves that question, because for so many, it's like the alternative is like, oh, I gotta date, I gotta meet this person, I gotta be alone, I gotta be that, I gotta be this. Okay, I'll just stay in this thing that makes me angry all the time. It's like, so I think that's a big part of like, when you get upset with someone where you're like, what's going on with this person? Well, do you even like this person? Does someone who doesn't text you ever?
Right.
Like, does that turn you off? Like, or are you just trying to get the thing? I think that's a big thing.
Jared Freid, where can people consume all of your stuff, as you've got so much stuff going on?
I've got a lot of stuff at Jared Freid on Instagram. That's kind of the center of my wheel. But I'm on everything. And I got 2 podcasts, the U Up podcast, the J Train podcast. If you go on my Instagram at Jared Freid, it's all there. I post everything. So that's an easy place to find.
Just don't send anything.
Oh, see, Mojo's right here. He's like, I have a bone to pick with you.
Yeah. That would be the second line that I would delete from my DMs. Are you in a puppy play? I have a bone to pick with you. What are we getting into here? What do you want from me?
He's practicing his shtick, okay? Just let him do it. Well, thank you so much, Jared, for your time. This was so much fun.
Of course. Yeah, thanks for having me. This is a blast.
All right, what is really helpful for us to get fabulous guests like Jared is if you give us good reviews and ratings in Apple Podcasts. This is what makes us look legitimate, so we don't seem like we're just into puppy play and DM random people on Instagram. And we're just going to wrap this up. Stay dateable! The Dateable Podcast is part of the Frolic Podcast Network. Find more podcasts you'll love at frolic.media/podcasts. Want to continue the conversation? First, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter with the handle @DateablePodcast. Tag us in any post with the hashtag StayDateable, and trust us, we look at all of those posts. Then head over to our website, dateablepodcast.com. There you'll find all the episodes as well as articles, videos, and our coaching service with vetted industry experts. You can also find our premium Why series, where we dissect, analyze, and offer solutions to some of the most common dating conundrums. We're also downloadable for free on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Overcast, Stitcher Radio, and other podcast platforms. Your feedback is valuable to us, so don't forget to leave us a review. And most importantly, remember to stay dateable.